Eric, what's up? Let's start with a life update.
We're back. We're back with another episode of Justin and Eric, your favorite dynamic duo. Um, yeah, things are going good. Season's warming up. Really exciting. Moving into the end of the year. Running a 4-week challenge. I'm not sure if you heard about it yet, but doing a 4-week challenge for the members, those viewers that are watching this, also available to you guys. But we're going to do 4 weeks with the purpose of preparing and getting you ultimate ready for 2026. So it's going to look like a bit of goal setting. We're going to do one webinar each week for the course of the 4 weeks. And the really exciting bit, two really exciting bits. Number one, we're going to try get a special guest to come and help us along the way each week out of those 4 weeks. And at the very end of it, for those athletes that are completing the challenge, we're going to set some exciting challenge tasks to complete each week. For all the athletes that complete the duration of the 4-week challenge, we're going to be giving out two greatest bags to two lucky winners. So that's on the agenda. That's what I'm working hard. I'm trying to, in the process of lining up these headliners, if you will. But exciting things in the works. I don't want to leak too much yet, but that's on the agenda.
Can you give us a sneak peek of who might be a guest speaker? Who you're working on? Is
Yeah,
that
I
too
mean,
much?
I don't want to leak it just yet. We'll do some formal announcements in the next few days and over the next few weeks. So do keep out on the socials. Um, but I can say that I think a lot of viewers will know who they are and they'll be very excited to hear from them. I guess I'd be curious, Justin, if you had a dream guest speaker that you could pick their brain for maybe 30 minutes to an hour. Do you have a wish list? I went down this exercise at the beginning of kind of this challenge before I even kind of started ideating with it. And I thought, who would my dream guest speakers with? And I came out with a bit of a list.
Mhm.
Um, do you have a list of people that you want to pick the brain of?
Is this specifically for Ultimate, or this could be for anything?
Let's go specifically for Ultimate first, and then maybe we can go more broader in the sports space, or maybe everything actually. Yeah.
In Ultimate, Valeria, Cardenas, Marquez, Brownlee, probably the two that come to mind.
Yeah, Marquez.
Marquez, yeah, Marquez would be cool. Also, just to pick his brain on like the social media stuff, right? And like obviously, he's top end from both Ultimate and the social media and all that. So learning from him would be pretty sick.
Yeah, Marquez was on my list. I elected not to send him a DM because I don't think it'd quite get very deep in his list of however many million followers he has. But that would be cool. Funnily enough, I was a volunteer at the World Ultimate Club, not Club Championships, but the World Ultimate Championships last year, and I ended up being the volunteer for one of the mixed games. So Marquez was there, warming up in front of me, taking photos like after games and stuff. It was crazy. Yeah, good to see.
That's awesome. Who's on your list then?
Yeah, I mean, I could pull it up. Some names that came to mind were, yeah, Marquez was up there. Michael Ing, I think we talked about last week. Like he's been a standout player for me over the last few months and over the last year. On the female matching side, Manuela, of course, one of the Cardenas sisters. Valeria as well. Levka Volchak, big one. Kat Phillips from Australia, from Ellipsis, also a big one. Um, yeah, and some of the other like typical big boys in the space, Toby de Crana, Dan Demaray, people like that, and some of the Aussie guys as well. But don't want to expose too much. We've got some good things lined up. Who knows? Maybe some of those names we listed off could be involved. We'll see.
That's awesome. What goes into a challenge then, without revealing too much of that too? Like what can people expect with that?
Yeah, absolutely. The full goal of the challenge is for us to get you ready for 2026, right? So we're going to kick off with some sort of goal setting, some sort of kind of getting your body ready and what that looks like. We're going to bring in some specialists to help out with that. Justin would love to have you on board, involved in that process, in case anyone has any questions and stuff as well from the strength and conditioning side. We're going to have weekly exercises to complete, weekly actions based on whatever goals you've set. We'll have those obviously guest speakers coming in, helping out with specific skills and specific focus areas each week, whether that's on-field skills or kind of approaching the game or performing at tryouts, whatever it might be. And the idea is by the end of the 4 weeks, you will have set up all the winning habits you need to take on at least the first little bit of 2026 head on and with the highest chance of success. So, yeah, that's going to be what it looks like. Again, ironing out the details now. So, going to be a busy 2 weeks for me. In terms of details as to when it starts, it's going to be the last month before the Christmas break on this side of the year. So, start date is November 21st, and it'll be a finish date on December 21st. So, 30 days of preparation before the Christmas holidays. And come along, join along. If you're curious, I'll leave the information down in the description. So, join the 2026 challenge.
Sounds cool. And then we go into the new year. Like you don't even have to worry about resolutions or anything because you're already pretty squared away by that point. Then.
That's the thing, right? We're here. A lot of the things, like when it comes to, I know we talk about this. It seems like every time we chat, Justin, we talk about a little bit daily actions and daily habits. A lot of the times, it's just about building the right habits that get you into the right mind space and get you into the behaviors that are actually going to help you succeed, right? And I think a big part of the reason why I want this to be kind of a group challenge as well, is because you have that group accountability, right? You have a target that you need to hit, you have guest speakers coming along saying that you can do this, and if you need any help, you can ask them during the process. But you also have groups of athletes that are very much also in that journey alongside you, pushing towards similar goals. And there's nothing more motivating when it comes to reaching a higher level than having people around you that are pushing you along the way and wanting the same out of you as well. So really excited for this kind of group program to be moving forward, and excited for people to get engaged with it, learn a lot, and carry that forward into 2026. So, yeah, it's a 30-day thing. It's a 4 week program. That's it. No strings attached. You come in for the 4 weeks, you do the learning, and then you'll be on your way. So, it's a one off. Never done anything like this when it comes to a one off program. But I think it's going to be a banger, and I think it's going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting. Never before done in Ultimate too. So yeah, excited to
Yeah,
see how it goes.
no, it's gonna be cool. I'm toying with it because all of this is very flexible, right? It really all comes down to what the guest speakers are willing to do and kind of my conversations that I'm lining up with them over the next week. We'll see what it looks like. Maybe we'll end up doing a final end of challenge, call where we get all the panelists in one place and do a broad Q&A. I mean, I think that would be awesome. But you got to let me cook over the next week. Got some calls lined up this week, Justin. It'll be exciting, and we'll see if we can line something like that up. It'll be cool. And of course, Justin, you'll be invited. You'll be the day one there on the panel if there are any strength related questions.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'd be excited to join if possible.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you want to be on the panel next to Valeria and next to Marquez Brownlee, we can make it happen.
Yeah, I'd probably just be asking all the questions.
Yeah, I don't think we're quite going to get Marquez, but stay tuned. I'm working on it. Let me cook. Let me cook.
Sweet, sweet.
Yeah. How's things with you, Justin? How's life in as a professional in Japan in the basketball scene?
It's been great so far. Quick basketball update. The team that I work for, the Nagoya Diamond Dolphins, we're 12 games into the season now. We're 11-1, so we're on a 10-game win streak. We're one. I think we're tied for first place in the league, and we have a game tonight. So, been
Wow.
looking pretty strong. I also coach so we have like an academy team, like a U18 team, and we have basically our championship in 2 weeks, and that team is looking pretty strong as well. We won like 2 games by 40 2 weeks ago, so we're the
Wow.
reigning champions. So going into this championship weekend, looking pretty good. So basketball wise, I mean, every team's looking strong. Everybody's healthy. So it's yeah, nothing more you could really ask for. And then ultimate wise, just we're in the off season now. So and then like we talked about last week, since nationals is over, we're full like everybody in the US is in the off season. So started working with some new people, which is always fun. Always fun to kind of pick up some really high level clients as well to kind of see the differences there and dive into those conversations a little bit more. And so off season training's pretty much in full effect, which is a lot more training than in season. So yeah, exciting stuff here.
Yeah, anyone I know might be client coach under client coach privileges, but any big dogs that you might want to shout out or kind of you've picked up or have been working with over the last few months, over the last few years?
Yeah, like you mentioned, I can't really reveal too much. I'll post some stuff, and they'll post some stuff here in the coming weeks. But again, shout outs. I think I shouted them out last week, but yeah, keep working with Manny Eckerd and Sockeye. They got sixth, I think you said, at nationals, which is pretty good. Kind of redemption for them. Tyler Smith and the DC Scandal going to Worlds, which is exciting. Hostway and Pony as well did really well at nationals. So yeah, worked with them for a couple years. Tyler for a year, Hostway and Manny for over a year. And yeah, they continuing to work with them. And it's been cool.
Yeah, awesome. I imagine it's like once you get to that duration of working with each other, it sounds like you and your athletes get a good rhythm, and you get to a point where it's like kind of like a smooth oiled machine.
For sure. Yeah, and you really understand what people need and what how to best communicate. Well, one, just the communication aspect of it, right? Like as you know, on an online formats, there's a lot of natural limitations, right? And so the better you can communicate and figure out other people's preferred communication styles, um, the more you can just provide as a coach, right? In a trainer. But also, yeah, from like an exercise standpoint, you just start to figure out what works for people, what doesn't work for people. And I'm sure you probably relate to this as far as like drills and stuff go, but especially on the exercise side, there's not this like one size fits all. Like this exercise is good for ultimate players. This is bad for ultimate players. Social media frames it that way as everything is black or white. And I play into this admittedly because that's what gets clicks and that's what gets views. Or you need some sort of like, or if you really want to go viral, right, you have to be really like radical and just you have to be very like it's this or that. But the fact of the matter is, it's like somebody might squat and be a really good ultimate player. Someone might be a really good ultimate player and not be able to squat. It's like it's not that squats are this make or break thing. It's just what works better for some people or others, right? So I found that I mean, this is the same for any sport, but there's like so many ways to skin a cat, right? And so training wise, if I can just figure out what the training goal is, I can fit multiple exercises into to fit that. So one player might not have the same like knee exercise as another player, and that's completely okay. It's just working with whatever works best for them.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, it's all about like personalization. It sounds to me like over the course of a few months, a few years, you really get the sense of what level of personalization and what a person really needs, right? Almost like a doctor in that sense, like giving the exact prescription that they're wanting and that they need.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And even like figuring out how much somebody can handle too is going to be completely different. Based on someone's body type, based on somebody's just like preferred strategy of movement, they might do better with higher volumes. They might do better with lower volumes, and that's completely okay as well. It's not like the question that's often framed is like, how often should I be doing XYZ, right? How many days a week should I be doing sprinting? How many days a week should I be lifting or whatever? And it's like, some people that are a little bit more like muscular, for example, like might do better with lifting more frequently. But if you can imagine like like in my mind, the stereotypic ultimate player that's like really good is the tall, lengthy, skinny type guy, right? Like or type guy or girl, but like you can imagine that kind of like archetype, right? And that type of person probably does a lot better with like field work and sprinting and jumping, but not as well with lifting. So trying to give them the same amount of lifting as somebody who's a little bit more muscular probably won't go well, right? So figuring out also like people's um, like what their body handles well, from like a volume perspective is also super interesting.
Yeah, that's actually really related to one of the things that I'm working through with one of my clients at the moment. Um, Similar in like the on-field patterns and on-field movement, people of different stature are going to approach many different scenarios in many different ways as well, right? So one particular athlete that I'm working with is, I think he's 6'2" or 6'3", got that typical like ideal ultimate style kind of build, like long limbs, right? But the way that he's going to set up for a block on the open side under is going to be very different to the way that a shorter, more bulkier player, more agile style of player is going to set up for that same move, right? For those that are listening, that might be one archetype or the other, or somewhere in between. Think about like maybe a player of my stature, right? Like I'm 5'7", kind of pride myself in having that agility, right? Maybe my approach in marking an open side under might be playing it very neutrally, right? Not having my hips face one way or the other, but relying on the fact that I can actually shift between the two very quickly using my footwork because I'm close to the ground. My center of mass is lower. I can move my feet just a little bit quicker because they're physically closer, right? Compared to the big guy that's 6'2", 6'3", if you want to go to the extreme, imagine like a Victor Wembanyama, right? Basketball player, like 7'6". Just imagine him on the field, right? There's no way he's going to be able to flip his hips or move his feet in the same way that I do, right? And so then you can think about, all right, what are the block patterns that people that look like me get in Elite Ultimate? And so if you look at the taller archetype players or the lankier archetype of players, a lot of them is they'll kind of position in one particular way. They might stand behind the player, right? Pressure them to come in and attack the under. And that's where their advantage in the straight line speed and their closeout speed and their layout length allows them to generate that block and that pressure on the under without necessarily having to, shift their hips and stay agile in that moment as well. So it's unique that there are going to be, more than just two different approaches. There's really going to be an infinite different number of approaches, really depending on your unique body style. And it's really good to, get a sense of what works for you and also get that personalized down to the T for you. Because again, like in our world, right, it's not going to be, a generic do this activity or look for this pattern, just do what I do. It's really got to be kind of nailed down to your body type, your preferred style of movement, and what you feel comfortable and what you feel confident in being able to execute on the field.
For that specific scenario, so that's interesting you bring that up because and then this isn't my expertise, so that's why I ask. But I would almost think about it like in the inverse, right? So if we have like that taller, lengthier archetype of player who's not going to be as good, like maybe in that underspace, would they potentially want to sit underneath then? So then they are already like they've put themselves in an advantageous position to take away the under. And then they know that if they force their person out and go deep and the ball goes up, they're going to have a better chance of going and getting the deep versus what you mentioned. What I have seen a lot is they do sit over the top and force that person under. So why do you think that is?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It all comes down to what your objective is on the field, right? Number one is your objective to shut down this cutter, right? Or in this specific scenario, is our objective to generate a block chance or a block opportunity? Everything when it comes to ultimate, offensively or defensively, is going to come down to your goal. And the way that you approach a specific situation is going to be different based on what your goal is, right? And so if I was that taller player and I wanted to completely shut down my matchup, right? Then that's maybe where I would stay underneath, stop the easy option, knowing that I have an advantage with the disc going towards the end zone. But you get the other side of that is when a thrower sees that you're close, you're prepared, and you're taller and you have the height mismatch in the end zone, well, they're less likely to throw it, right? So you may have achieved your objective of being able to stop that option, but you don't get to create that same block chance or opportunity for a block to occur. If you feel like the team might take on that shot, then you do. And that's what you set up for. The other alternative is if you are positioned in such a way, obviously you can be neutral, you can still rely on your footwork to some extent. But if you do want to sit over the top or behind or to be backing someone, um, that's also a different approach, right? A different goal. In this situation, maybe we want them to go underneath. And maybe we're going to, again, kind of like what I explained earlier, rely on our closeout speed and our straight line acceleration and our layout length to be able to actually turn that into a block chance. So that's why a lot of taller players sometimes will be on the back shoulder because they know that they can just close out so much distance coming underneath and they can slip into that inside channel and they can go bid and get that kind of full extension layout. You would have seen, I'm not sure exactly what his name is, but a taller gentleman who wears gloves on the Revolver team this last US Open. I just saw clip after clip of him baiting these kind of layout Ds on the under where it's like literally his fingertips. But he's just that classic, archetype, taller player, good closeout speed, good at laying out, and can go for that window, right? So figure out the patterns that work for you. Like that pattern works for him. That might not be your go-to though. Find out what defensive scenarios you like. Find out what movement patterns you like. Find out your bread and butter and stick to them. Right? It's like a few basketball analogies today, but like LeBron James, his chase down block. Right? That's his bread and butter when it comes to defense. Find your bread and butter. Find out what scenarios you excel in, and it also gives you like an added sense of confidence on the field as well, because it's like, well, this is my shit, right? Like I cook in this area, I can get open no matter what, or I can get a block no matter what in this space, and you're almost ready for that, and you're almost playing at a high level in your own brain, if that makes sense.
It does. To relate it to then maybe something similar to Ultimate, are you saying like I have a couple throws where like I know if I have to get it to the break side, I have a couple throws where I know that I can break the mark with pretty high accuracy or confidence. And it's the same idea with it's like that idea but applied to a specific situation in game. I guess like if this specific thing happens, then I know how to get a block here or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that you do need to think about though is you also don't want it to be a crutch in your game, if that makes sense. As much as you want to have superpowers and as much as you want to have go-to skills, go-to patterns, go-to throws, you never want anything to be a crutch, right? What that means is you don't want to have to rely on just one type of way to break the mark or one type of cut to get open. Because what happens is ultimate is that situations will change and sometimes windows in terms of like throwing windows, cutting timings, throwing timings, and decisions are going to look very different, right? And so, if you want to go, and this is actually very top of mind for me because it's a key kind of skill that we're working on in this preseason, is the idea of being able to throw whatever throw that's required in that moment for that specific situation, whether that's early or late, whether that's early and slow or late and slow, or early and fast or late and fast, right? And so the idea is ultimate is so much more complex. Throwing is so much more complex than just saying forehand or backhand, right? Windows constantly change. The speed of your throw is going to change relative to that, and the amount of touch and the way you pivot and your release speed and your release point is going to be different depending on the scenario as well. So as much as you do want go-to ways to be able to break the mark, it's important to have well-rounded throws so that you can hit whatever appears in front of you and you can hit it fast with the right amount of speed as well, whether that's a fast throw, a medium throw, or a slow throw.
What are some ways that people can go about working on that specifically then?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. um, I mean, one, I actually put out a post earlier this week, which was ten throwing drills that I would do if I had to start again. So if you have no idea where to start when it comes to expanding your throwing range and your kind of decisions with the disc, go jump onto the Instagram, just read that post. There's 10 throwing drills that you guys can get started with. The biggest thing that probably has helped me the most in my kind of transition into becoming a handler for a top club team is not applying too much structure to it and realizing, okay, like the objective here is for me to be able to get the disc from where I am to my target in whatever shape or form that might look like. So it's always good. Like one big thing that helped me, and this is the last throw set of that group of 10, is the idea of R&D throws, research and development throws. So the idea is we should always have one or two throws that are at the limits of our throwing range that are going to be useful that we want to be practicing. So, for example, let's say you have a good full pivot backhand, a good full pivot forehand, right? Maybe an R&D throw if you want to expand the limit of your range each week, right? Maybe this might be a really dramatic wide pivot inside low release flick, right? As wide as you possibly can. I don't know if you've seen like Nate Goff is a player that like does this a lot, but there's this beautiful slow mo video of him taking a huge wide pivot. The guy's like 6'3" or 6'4", and he just like has this huge wide low release backhand inside out shape. So maybe that's an R&D throw for you. Or maybe you work on a half pivot, quick release backhand, or a no pivot, quick release backhand that sits in space for 4 or 5 seconds before it drops to the ground, right? So think about these specific situations, these specific throws. It might not necessarily be, your typical, backhand flat throw under 20 meters, forehand flat throw under 20 meters. It might be a different shape. It might be a different speed. It might be a different height. It might be a different release speed or a release point. Think about all these variables, come up with one or two that you want to work on each week, and then go out and go ahead and work on it. And before you know it, you'll build it to a point of confidence where you feel good throwing it in game, and it just adds to your throwing range like you won't even imagine.
I like that a lot. I know have we talked about, like, the constraints-led approach? Or you're probably
I,
familiar.
I've heard, no, I saw a Reddit post about this early in the week, but go ahead, talk to me about it.
Is it r/ultimate?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, nice. I like it. Field's moving up. Um, real simply, right? Constraints-led approach is basically just instead of thinking about things as like there's this one specific way to do it, there's this one perfect way to do it, right? You can use different constraints, or you can basically constrain certain variables in order to get the outcome that you want, right? So if you think about in game, like where your defender is positioned is a very simple way to understand like what a constraint is. Your defender is positioned on the backhand side, forcing you to throw a flick, right? They are constraining you to a flick. Um, but if you want to still get a backhand off, right, it just changes the way that you would then get a backhand off, right? You have to step out farther, you have to step out quicker, whatever it is. So in your training, exactly like you're saying, you can find a couple variables and constrain those to then elicit a different outcome, right? So maybe one that people I think do pretty much all the time is if they want to work on how far they're stepping out, you might set up a cone that's maybe a meter away from your pivot point. So you have to step out past that constraint and throw it, right? Or you're saying you can maybe get your release speed a little bit quicker. So as soon as you catch it, you have 1 second to get it out. That constrains you and that changes the outcome of it. And the whole idea is that again, there's not this like one specific way or one perfect way that everything is done. If you look at like the micro details of everybody's form, it's a little bit different. And if you look at the micro details of one person's throwing, like throw by throw, it's always going to be a little bit different. So following that like constraints led approach a lot of times can has been found in research to elicit a lot better results.
yeah. I love that. No, yeah, that's awesome, and definitely like get creative with it. I would say like think about different ways to emulate different scenarios on the field, different ways to react to different scenarios. One thing I recommend my athletes is if you're getting to a point where you have all the underlying throws, they're all accurate, you're following that constraints led approach, and you're hitting them accurately, and you're not sure what the next progression is. That next level is for us to start pushing for more decision making in our training. So what that means is either more visualization, right? If you see an option, either you throw the under or you throw the huck after the change direction, right? Or you throw the under, you wait a second, shimmy fake, throw the inside, right? Now you have a few different decisions you need to make. Now, if you want external stimuli, as if it was in a game, right? Because in a game, you're not going to be able to choose which one. You just have to throw the one that presents to you. You can get a partner, they can call the particular option or they can cut for that particular option. Or if you're by yourself, go ahead and get a disc, right? Have one in your hand, have one in your other hand, throw it up, flip it, right? Whichever one it lands on, let that be one of the options that you're going to hit. And if it lands the other way, then let that be the other option that you're going to hit, right? So, for example, if I were to break it down to real tactics for you guys to use next training, if you're working on your inside flick or your around backhand, right? Maybe you throw one disc in the air. If it lands face up, you do a shimmy, you throw the inside flick. Or if it lands face down, you throw a fast release, no pivot or half pivot backhand, right? So that's one quick way that you guys can work on this reaction or decision making when you guys are even just by yourself at a higher level or kind of more intense game realistic way, manufacturing those scenarios so you can actually get the highest amount of impact in your training.
I like it. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that the decision making part of that's huge too, because then that gives you it's like every single rep becomes an in-game rep, which I think is important. Like you could go out and throw 100 times, but then you go in game, like I'm a defensive cutter, so in game I might have 5 actual reps, right? But if I go out and I do this decision making stuff, really visualizing, then I can get more of those like closer to in-game reps that I'm sure carries over a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And like something unique that I've noticed about my own game as I've, started to play and continue to play at a high level more and more is the way that I carry myself when I'm playing a important preseason, scrimmage or a semi-final game or a Asia Oceanic Ultimate Championship game or a WUCC game, right? It's going to be very different to sometimes can be very different to how I'm just training by myself or carrying myself in a league game, right? And I think as much as what I'm starting to realize and what's becoming really important in my approach is finding that mental switch and being able to say, okay, cool, I'm going to carry myself with that same aura or that same kind of mental approach whenever I want to train what it's going to be like for those high level scenarios. And for me, it's like very clear. I don't know what it is, but like when I'm, last night we were playing preseason kind of scrimmages in preparation for the upcoming season and tryouts. And 1 or 2 points, get into a phase where like I'm catching the disc, I'm looking downfield. It's kind of that confidence that you need when you're playing like a semi-final level game. And I don't know, there's just some pep in my step or some gusto when I'm kind of throwing a fake, and it feels different compared to when I played the league on Monday night. And I think as much as for myself, channeling that feel and that kind of almost professionalism with my art and with my approach in the game more, I think is going to serve kind of the way that I improve, and hopefully you guys listening to this improve more as well.
That's huge. Somebody asked me recently, I forget where or when, but I think I was talking about intentionality in like every rep that you do, and I think that's exactly what you're talking about. Like you could go out again, like you could go out and throw 100 throws, right? But you could do it with every single one with that like professionalism that you're saying, or you could just go out and throw 100 times, and the amount of benefit that you get out of either of those is going to be very, very different. So yeah, that's a great point. You bring up.
Yeah, it's pretty fun, and, like, once you feel it and once you get it, like, you get it, right? You can like, I think if you're listening to this, like, think to a point, and I'm sure maybe, Justin, you can indulge me in this exercise as well, but think of a point where, like, maybe you played a game and you were, maybe really just really locked in, and it felt like you were unstoppable on D, or you felt like you were unstoppable on offense, and you're just super close, and you weren't tired, and you were engaged, and you were hitting every option that you needed to, and you were just locked into that moment, and you were present, right? That feeling of being present, that's what a lot of athletes or coaches will refer to as like being in the zone or being in flow state, right? So as much as we can, like find the little cues or the little triggers or the little mental tricks to help you get into flow state. Know what it feels like. Know when you're in it. That's always going to be kind of an aspiration as an athlete. Like how often can we get into flow state, or do we even need to leave flow state? Can we stay in flow state the whole time? A funny, not well, yeah, it's a little bit funny, a little humorous kind of approach um, that I learned from one of Australia's strongest players, Alex Latamatos. He's yeah, an Australian croc, played the World Games, did a season with New York Pony as well. I believe he won US Nationals that year. Not sure how many years ago now, but really decorated Australian player. He got a question. We did a kind of New South Wales panel with kind of the youth athletes of New South Wales. I was there helping out, and one of the athletes asked, like, how do you make sure that you get into flow state? And his challenge to that question was, why do you need to leave flow state? And his view was like, I'm always in flow state. I'm always ready to kind of play at that level, and I don't leave it. Right, I'm just whenever I play, whenever he plays, right, whether that's league, whenever that's throwing at the park, whatever it is, he's always executing it with that kind of intentionality and with that focus. So that's his approach. Everyone's going to have this slight different approach, but I thought that was a interesting approach to share.
I like that. That's a good point. Also, shout out that is a kid, right? Like a youth player that asked that.
Sorry, say that again.
It said it was a youth player or a kid that asked that question.
Yeah, yeah. It was I think it was it must have been last year, might have been the under 18s emerging talent program that we held in our state. Yeah.
What a good question! Like a thought provoking question from a kid. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, for that particular event, like we had a few talks of people coming in, some like sports specialists, some people that are helping with like, strength and conditioning, some people with skill acquisition, things like that. But yeah, there was a lot of discussion around kind of mental resilience and kind of mental approach. I'm sure the topic of kind of flow state came up. So yeah, no, definitely a good question. And yeah, good things to be
Yeah, that's
thinking about as youth athletes, right? Because it's a big part of our game.
no, for sure. I think a big thing with flow state too is that if you want to get into flow state, you can't think about flow state. I think that's the thing that people often forget, right? It can't be like, well, it's time to flow state, and like you're not gonna flow state that way. The thing about flow state is it's like this subconscious thing, right? You're so focused on the external things that are happening that it's like everything internally just happens automatically. Where more of like your processing power, more of your focus can go towards reading the defense or hitting your target or whatever it is, right? And so I think as far as training goes, I think this what comes back to like the constraint led approach is that there's like what's called an internal focus and an external focus when you're throwing or when you're doing anything, any sort of skill, right? Like, are you focusing internally? Are you thinking about what your body's doing? Where's my elbow? Where's my wrist? All that? Or are you thinking about external, like, what's the shape of the disc? Am I hitting my target? How is the disc floating? All these things that are outside of your body, right? And if you get really good at focusing externally, um, and making that kind of like your standard operating procedure, right? Instead of always having to be like my elbow has to be here, my wrist has to be here, right? If you're always focusing externally, then getting into flow state is a lot easier because if your practice is always thinking about internally, in and then in game you don't think internally, it's going to be this big kind of like um, transition period for your body where you're going to be like, crap, I'm so used to always focusing on this during my throw, and now I can't think about that, right? But if you're always focusing externally and everything in your body just kind of happens automatically, I think going into flow state is a lot easier. And that's where, when you're training, if you're thinking about things that are, or you're thinking about the constraint more than you're thinking about your body, that's where it can help out. Like, am I stepping out around this mark enough? Am I getting the disc out quick enough? Am I hitting the under quick enough, or whatever it is, right? I think that stuff can be huge.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the coffin there when you talked about like having it be automatic, right? We always strive for things to be automatic and autonomous when we're actually going to execute it in a game scenario. Like you don't want to be thinking about anything when you're trying to execute the throw. You just want to be hitting the option. You just want to be seeing the option, right? Yeah. I guess on the last thing to kind of cap off this conversation, I guess, is I think if you maybe last year or maybe 1 or 2 years ago, I was really trying to expand my throwing range as an athlete at Sunder. It was kind of similar time during the year where it's preseason. You're trying to feel out kind of, what type of license you can have as a thrower, what type of options, or what type of range you want to kind of bring to the season. I asked one of the top throwers in our club, also one of the world game athletes, Alex Gann, known for having like awesome range of throws, like fantastic hucks, just pinpoint accuracy. And I asked like Alex, like, how do I know when my range, how to take on these, bigger shots, or like how can I build that confidence of like executing this, or how can I, yeah, have more impact in the field with my throws? And he just said like, when you are ready to hit those shots, like it should feel automatic. You shouldn't be thinking about it. And so if you are thinking about it, it probably means that there's more work to be done in the background, right? Probably means that there's more to be done in terms of getting your throws up to that autonomous point so that you see an option, your body knows that you can hit it, your brain knows that you can hit it, and you just hit it, right? So food for thought for the athletes out there.
Sure.
I guess to pivot maybe on our conversation, Justin, I know at the beginning of the call I was talking about preparing for 2026 and helping athletes with kind of setting out their goals and expectations. I'm curious in your own life or game. Are there any kind of plans or anything exciting coming up for 2026? Any goals in mind or any wisdom that you'd like to share from like a goal setting perspective?
Goal setting. That's good. Yeah, that's a good question.
Don't mean to put you,
Uh,
but I'm
no,
curious.
you're good. More wait, so for clarity, more for, like, advice for players or more are you talking about for myself?
Yeah, I'm curious in both. I mean, I'm sure the viewers would be curious in both as well.
And for myself, I don't really know how long I'll keep playing, to be honest, so that's been tough. I think so I guess I can, yeah, kinda talk about this a little bit. Um, I don't really know because like, work and everything, complete new country, complete new scene. I don't really know how long I'll keep playing Ultimate like competitively, right? But I keep getting invited to these like one-off tournaments every now and then. So my training has literally been like, all right, I got a tournament coming up in 3 weeks. Let me prepare as best as I can in 3 weeks, right? And so one thing I think people can think about because for me, it's basically just been like a preseason every single time, right? Where I have a couple weeks where it's like I haven't really been doing too much off or ultimate stuff. Now I got 3 weeks to prepare, which is basically what the off season or off season to preseason transition is, right? Like you've been doing all this kind of training in the off season, whatever it is. Now it's like, all right, let's lock in and get specific with it. And I think what people can really think about is like how what are like the most intense things in ultimate and how can you prepare best for those, right? So in my mind, and I think objectively this is what it is there's change of direction, there's jumping, and there's sprinting, right? So the three most intense things in ultimate and change of direction and specifically deceleration being the most intense out of all of those, right? When we go into a cut, let's say, right, really, really high forces, a lot of really high impact, and people are like, oh, cutting hurts my knees, cutting is going to tear my ACL, yada, yada. It's not that. It's just that it's a very high force activity. A lot of times people aren't prepared for that, right? So when I'm in this kind of like ramp up period, what I'm thinking about is, okay, how can I get my body most prepared for those three things? And it's not doing a bunch of squats, deadlifts, and bench press. It's doing those three things, right? But of course, I can't just jump right back in to like sprinting a bunch per week, cutting a bunch per week, jumping a bunch times per week, right? It has to be a gradual kind of progression. I talked about this on my Instagram kind of recently, where I was just like, um, if you want to not get sprinting related injuries, like if you don't want to tear your hamstring while sprinting in game, then you probably have to be sprinting and training to some capacity, right? And somebody was like, well, how do I not tear my hamstring when I'm training in sprinting and training, which is like a very valid point, right? But it's like the thing that's different between in game and in training is we have control over how much we're doing and the intensity of it, right? You could go into a game and you could cut deep 15 times, you could cut deep one time. It's like you don't really know what's going to happen, or the person you're guarding might cut deep a bunch of times, and suddenly you're sprinting a lot, right? But in training, I could start off with just one sprint and see if I feel good. And maybe next time I bump that up to two, maybe next time I bump that up to three. It also change the speed of it. Maybe a 100% sprint. It's been a while, probably not a good idea. But if I start at 70%, then I can build up. Next time I go 80%, next time I go 90%. What's cool too is if you go on a hill, right? The incline of it is going to naturally make it a little bit safer on your hamstrings, right? Because you don't really get into your top speed mechanics that much. You kind of stay in like an acceleration position. So you could still get 100% output, but you're in a much safer position. So that's kind of been my focus every single time is let me build up a little bit as far as volume and intensity goes in sprinting. Let me build up a little bit as far as in volume and intensity goes in cutting, right? I can just do maybe a handful of cuts one day and then I bump that up to like 2 sets of that, 3 sets of that, whatever that is. And I think people in 2026 can also think about the same thing as we start to get closer to like, at least in the US, there's like PUL and WUL that's starting, tryouts start up for that pretty soon. And then once we get into the new year, we're going to have UFA tryouts, right? And then right after that, we're pretty much right into the club tryouts, right? And so instead of going into your tryouts and that being the first time that you've played high intensity ultimate, like in the intensity of those things can be pretty high, right? Instead of that being the first time you've done that, make sure in your training, at least I would say like 4 to 6 weeks leading up. You're doing a couple sprints, you're doing a couple cuts, you're doing a couple jumps. Start with a little bit, see how your body feels with it, slowly build up from there.
Yeah, that's cracker. That's awesome. I might need to get you in for one of the webinars in our 4 week challenge, Justin. I think a lot of our members would benefit from more information and kind of more tactically how they can prepare for that. But it sounds like it's a lot of it is kind of outcome oriented, figuring out like where it is that we actually want to be in X amount of time, and then figuring out okay, in order to get there, achieving that amount of volume or that amount of intensity at that moment in time, what do I need to do in the interim, in the steps in preparation to get there? I mean, does that sound about right?
I would say so. Yeah, and again, I think I touched on this last week, but knowing exactly what it is that you need to get to often is a very hard metric to know if you don't have specific ways to track that data. We talked about the data trackers last time where like with Scandal, I've been able to quantify some of that to figure out, okay, like in a random or on an average like nationals level game, you're cutting this much, you're sprinting this much. So maybe like we're starting to build up to that point. But yeah, for average person is pretty tough. So I think go with like time and slowly build up to that. Like build up to being able to play for 2 hours or whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, I know we're coming up on kind of our last 10 or so minutes here, Justin. I don't really have anything particular top of mind for me, but I'm curious, is there any interesting topics that have come across your desk or anything top of mind that, anything fun or interesting that you might want to spend the last little bit talking about?
Yeah, top of mind for me, I'm working on a video on YouTube that'll come out hopefully within the week. But interested in some of your thoughts, right? But I basically just recorded everything that I did at the last tournament I went to in Hong Kong and talked about how I prepared, right? So the week leading up to the tournament, what I eat the night before, hydration, sleep, what to eat morning of the tournament, during the tournament, like all that stuff. Hopefully, is kind of like a practical guide for people, but using instead of just me sitting and just being like, do it this way, like I showed exactly what I did at a tournament, right? So I'm interested for you, like, are there any maybe like top three things that have been maybe like game changers for you? Because I think everybody knows like eat food, drink water, sleep, right? But are like there's some things that maybe stick out for in your regimen.
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, Obviously, you've covered all the like the standard things that need to be done. Even just getting all that right, it's pretty underrated. Like, even though you know you should drink and eat and rest more, I mean, people still, even in this conversation, we're thinking about, okay, what else beyond that, right? But even just getting that right in the first place is going to be super critical. So I would say don't overlook that. Get the
That's a
right
great
amount.
answer. That's
Yeah.
a great
get,
answer.
get the right amount of sleep, get the right amount of hydration, eat enough, get your carbs, whatever it is. Um, Although I will say, beyond that, definitely just get yourself, because when we come to the tournament, right, or we come to a tryout or whatever, like the main thing there is that we can execute the skills that are needed of us, right? Whether that's for us to make the team in a tryout, or whether that's for us to perform based on what our team needs us to do at a tournament. We just want to be able to be at a point where we can confidently execute everything, right? Everything that is expected of us, everything that we should be able to execute. So to prime yourself, especially in like the few days or the week before a tryout, I would say like from my perspective, just get all the skill work, the skill priming and the preparation you need in. Like if you feel like your throws, yeah, I think all of us can relate to like that feeling when your throws are just on, right? You feel like you've got the right amount of touch, the right amount of spin. You can put a target 20 meters away, you can hit it right on the money, right? We've all been in that point. I hope so. Or if you're not, try to get to that point, do the drills that we were talking about earlier, go to the Instagram, go find them. But once you've felt what that feels like, you know what level you're capable of, right? And if you feel like you're not quite at that level where your skills are super in tune, where you're moving fluidly on the field, defensively, offensively, and throwing wise, then just get in the volume that you need to get to that point. So, like a tactical, super tactical thing that I think all athletes should be doing in preparation for a tryout or um, a tournament is just throw in the 7 to 10 days in lead up for the tournament, right? You will have no idea how much your daily throwing is going to impact your ability to execute come tryouts and then come tournament. Because on that first day of daily throwing, you will have got to that point where you're feeling, okay, I'm feeling pinpoint. And then throughout each day after that, you're not letting go of that feeling. And by the time you get to tryouts and by the time you get to tournaments, it'll be second nature and kind of akin to the things that we were talking about earlier. You can just focus on the team plan. You can just focus on the skills, or you can focus on the object in front of you. You can focus on the target in front of you, and you don't have to worry about your skills underpinning that. So that would be my advice. Just go do the volume that you need. Don't burn yourself out like the week before the tryout, but get in the skills work that you need to feel ready.
That's huge. Yeah, I like that. The thing I talk about in the video, I talked a lot about before too, is like that week leading up to a tournament, you're not going to become better, like probably at all, right? But you could potentially make yourself a lot worse. Right? And so you're not going to get faster, you're not going to get in better shape, anything like that. But the thing that you can do is definitely touch up on your skills and continue to just get a high volume of that. Like if you're somebody that feels like you have to cram almost like you procrastinated all the work right up to the tournament, right? The thing that you can just do a ton of is the skills work and the mental preparation and watching film or whatever it is, right? But from an athletic perspective, you're probably not going to move the needle at all.
Yeah, don't go out there and like kill yourself in the last week in preparation for a tournament. Um, don't do 100,000 throws for the first time 2 days before a tournament. Because even though you're just throwing, I guarantee you, you'll feel sore for the tournament and you won't be performing at your best. So if it's your first time doing skill stuff, don't do that. The day or the 2 days before, you're probably a lost cause at that point, and just go to the tournament, do what you can. But if you have at least a week, go for those throws. It won't hurt, and just don't overdo the volume, but get enough for you to feel good and feel ready. That's what I would say.
Sure. To end it off, Eric, I shouted out some people earlier, but we want to finish with a shout out from your end, maybe?
Um, yeah, I guess just shout out to all the people that are really committing to the off season right now. Not all my athletes are in the off season. Some are in different countries, and the seasons work a little bit differently there. Some are, well in their indoor seasons in the UK and in Europe. Others are kind of preparing for tryouts in Australia. But just shout out to all the athletes that are coming on board and kind of investing in their development over this time. Even if there are other athletes or teammates out there that might be taking it easy, right? They might be taking the time off and spending time in the gym or whatever. That's totally okay. But shout out to those that are committing to their skill development at this point in time and committing to becoming better ultimate players in this point in time. Had a few athletes kind of join on board over the last week who are kind of taking things a bit more seriously, wanting a little bit more kind of closer personalized skill development stuff alongside myself. So I just want to say welcome aboard to those athletes. Not going to name drop them, but they know who they are, and really excited to work with you guys over the course of the next few weeks in preparation for the off season and in preparation for kind of the tryouts early next year.
Oh, shout out getting better.
Shout out, getting better.